You ever get fired in silence, not in a meeting, not on a call, not even with eye contact, but by email, mid-flight, while closing the biggest deal your company has ever touched? I was 40 on my third continent in 10 days, wearing the same blazer I'd slept in twice, and fixing compliance slides over airplane Wi-Fi when my name disappeared from their system. No warning, no explanation. Just a single subject line: termination. Effective immediately. They thought that would break me. That I'd land, cry, and vanish quietly. What they didn't know was that I had already started building something of my own. And by the time my wheels touched down, their top 3 clients were no longer theirs. I was somewhere over the Atlantic when my name disappeared. The cabin lights had just dimmed. Berlin was 6 hours ahead. São Paulo 10 behind. I had 3 time zones in my head, a half-finished pitch on my screen, and a cup of lukewarm coffee balanced between turbulence. Then came the email. Subject line: employment termination, effective immediately. No call, no warning. Just the click of an inbox refresh. I stared at it for a full minute, willing it to be a glitch, but it wasn't. Ms. Chen, your employment with Solvexa Systems is terminated effective immediately. All credentials revoked. Do not return to company property. Any engagement with clients or affiliates will be considered a breach of contract. No signature, just the company logo, cold and blue, like it had swallowed my name whole. I didn't breathe. For 9 years, I had been the one they called when deals stalled, when contracts collapsed, when competitors circled. I didn't just close deals, I resurrected them. Now I was erased. Mid-air, 38,000 feet above any form of dignity. I looked around. Businessmen in suits were snoring under Lufthansa blankets. One woman to my left was writing in a planner, oblivious to the fact that my entire career had just been wiped clean. My hands moved on instinct. I closed the company laptop and slid it aside. Then I reached under the seat and pulled out the other one, matte black, no stickers, no branding. Encrypted. Mine. They didn't know it existed. They didn't know I'd been planning for this exact betrayal for months. 3 weeks ago, I was in Solvexa's Manhattan boardroom rewriting a $400 million proposal on the fly, while legal panicked and finance ducked for cover. I didn't wait for permission. I picked up the pen, redrew the terms, and saved a client that was halfway out the door. Grayson Bell, the CEO, had called me the company's North Star that day. He even toasted me with champagne. And now he'd fired me via email before my plane even landed. Not even the decency to let me touch down. For a moment, I felt it, that hollow, weightless feeling you get when the elevator drops too fast. But it passed, because something else rose to take its place. Not rage, not panic. Clarity. I opened the black laptop. Typed in a code only I knew. The logo blinked awake on the screen, a silver crescent wrapped around a bold, sharp word. Orvantis. Not a code name. Not a threat. A new beginning. Built silently. In the shadows they ignored. I smiled. They fired the wrong woman. And when this flight landed, they'd find out just how wrong they were. I wasn't flashy. No inspirational LinkedIn posts. No keynote speeches at tech summits. No neon-lit job titles. Just results. At Solvexa, they didn't hire me to smile for press photos. They hired me to fix the messes no one else could. In 9 years, I had become the company's unofficial emergency protocol. When a $300 million pharma merger went sideways in Brussels, I was the one who got on a 2 a.m. flight with a translation binder, a thermos of tea, and a settlement framework I'd rewritten on the plane. That deal closed 36 hours later. No headlines, just a quiet wire transfer and a shaken CFO who refused to work with anyone but me after that. They called it talent. I called it pattern recognition. I saw what others missed. And more importantly, I saw what they were afraid to name. Solvexa's strength wasn't in its software. It was in the illusion of control. They built dashboards and APIs and white papers. But behind the scenes, it was people like me, quiet, invisible tacticians, patching cracks with silence. I spoke 5 languages, slept in airports, had 3 backup chargers, 2 passports, and 1 rule. Never let them see you need them. The title never matched the load. I was Director of Strategic Engagement, which in corporate terms meant do everything the C-suite forgets to do, then take the fall if it goes sideways. They paid me well, but not enough to buy loyalty blind. I wasn't chasing promotion. I was chasing integrity, and every year that word grew harder to find in the building I once called home. The change started subtly. First came the airbrushed hires. Former interns turned executives overnight because they presented well. Then came the reshuffles, the sudden absences of people who used to challenge policy in meetings. Then Mallory Voss arrived, Grayson's goddaughter, fresh out of some West Coast accelerator with 1 failed startup and a self-help podcast to her name. Her title, Global Transformation Advisor. Her skill set, undefined, but her confidence, absolute. She joined my department quietly, then somehow ended up co-leading a task force I'd built from scratch. Every slide I refined, she repackaged. Every insight I presented, she reworded. At first, I thought it was accidental overlap. By the 3rd quarterly meeting, I realized it was subtraction mine. Still, I didn't flinch. I watched. I tracked. I prepared. Because when a system starts removing value to elevate vanity, you don't fight it loud. You build an alternative, in silence, with precision. And when the moment comes, you flip the entire board. The first time I heard the phrase, I thought I'd misheard. Avery's brilliant. No one's denying that. But she walks into a room and every guy stops talking. It came from a board member, casual, half-laughing, his mouth full of catered shrimp, at a strategic planning lunch I wasn't invited to. I had been in the adjoining conference room reviewing due diligence documents for a merger they'd barely skimmed. The sliding glass door hadn't shut all the way. Neither had my tolerance. Another voice chimed in. She's not EVP material. Too intense. She'd dominate every call. Then silence. Not discomfort, agreement. That moment didn't break me, but it did clarify something ugly. They weren't threatened by my failures. They were threatened by my competence. It wasn't that I lacked leadership potential. It's that I didn't perform palatable power, smiling just enough, nodding, without edge-framing solutions like they were someone else's idea. Mallory, on the other hand, was made for that. She was effortless with optics. Blonde blowout curated wardrobe, a TED Talk voice in every town hall. When she walked into a meeting, the men leaned forward, not because of what she brought, but because of what she didn't challenge. And so in the weeks after I saved the Berlin rollout, a deal so fractured it had its own Slack war room, Mallory was promoted, Vice President of Global Strategy. My department, my title, my work. At the announcement gala, they used a photo I had taken of the project team, cropped me out. Grayson gave a toast about emerging visionaries. No mention of 9 years. No nod to the actual strategist who had flown 26,000 miles to hold the company's credibility together with duct tape and discretion. I didn't drink the champagne. She approached me later, cocktail in hand, voice therapy. I hope we'll get to collaborate more now that I'm officially leading the team. I looked her in the eye. Of course. Let me know if you need help understanding the playbook you uploaded last week. She blinked, but smiled, and walked away like it hadn't landed. It had. That night back in my apartment, I opened the team drive. There it was. The Trevera proposal deck, weeks of cross-border strategy, risk modeling, client intel. My work lightly repackaged with her initials in the metadata. Not stolen, reattributed, sanitized. And I knew in that moment what the next step would be. I wouldn't fight to reclaim a seat at their table. I'd build my own. They promoted pretty. They silenced capable. And someday soon, they'd realize they'd fired the only woman who knew where the foundation was buried. Tokyo. The air in the conference room was filtered, silent, surgical. Yuto Watanabe, CTO of ZenPath Japan, reviewed the compliance slide without blinking. Behind him, the skyline sliced into the clouds like data towers in formation. "You promised security," he said finally. "So do your competitors. What makes Solvexa more than a slide deck?" I didn't flinch. I pulled up a live model custom encryption schema built for multi-jurisdictional hosting. Localized failover redundancies, metadata shielding protocols the board hadn't even reviewed yet. When I finished, he tapped his pen twice. "You understand the structure." Then after a pause, "Do they?" I held his gaze. "No, they use it. They don't understand it." He nodded once. "If there were a leaner version, same framework, no corporate noise, would you run it?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. As I walked him out, he said one thing. "If you ever do, call me first." Berlin. Linda Vogt never raised her voice. She didn't need to. General counsel for Helix Europa and a master of legal jiu-jitsu. Her office smelled like printer ink and pressure. "These contract clauses, Section 9A and 14B, are a mess," she said, dropping a printed copy onto the polished table. "Sloppy boilerplate." I nodded. "I flagged them last quarter. The board ignored me." She arched an eyebrow. "You fixed it." I slid her a thin folder, not the official Solvexa draft. Mine, the real one. Clean, neutral, enforceable across EU's latest post-Brexit updates. She scanned it in under a minute, then smiled just barely. "You should be sitting on this side of the table." I smiled back. "Maybe next time I will." Sao Paulo. Luis Ramos was a king who dressed like a commoner. CEO of Neuronet Brazil, last and loudest of the three clients in the Trivera deal. He met me in a cafe, not a boardroom. 3 cities, 10 months. "You built this," he said, stirring espresso. "Yet I keep seeing other names on the emails." I didn't blink. "That's the cost of building things inside glass towers." He leaned in. "You ever think about leaving the tower?" I didn't answer. Later that night during our formal session, he challenged every number: revenue splits, data localization, implementation ramp. And I held the line. Finally, he closed his folder and said, "I trust you. But I don't trust Solvexa." Then came the question that shifted everything. If there were a way to get the same tech with less ego, less politics, would I hear from you first? This time I did answer. You'd be the first. 3 cities, 3 conversations, 3 seeds sown in soil no boardroom could reach. Each one ended with no promises, just looks, just silence. But I knew what silence meant. It meant, we're waiting. We see you. And when you're ready, so are we. And that was all I needed. The cabin lights dimmed again, this time for dissent. I had just finished finalizing the São Paulo summary. Risk sharing confirmed. Localization safeguards approved. Client sign-off verbalized. The deal was closed. I leaned back, eyes dry, adrenaline flatlining. It should have been the proudest moment of my career. Instead, the screen in front of me flickered. Then glitched. At first, I thought it was the Wi-Fi. Then my Slack session expired. Then my calendar went blank. Then my Outlook shut down with a soft ping. I tried to log back in. Access denied. My hands didn't shake. They didn't need to. I already knew. Then came the email. Plain text. No salutation. No warmth. Just this subject: employment termination, effective immediately. Ms. Chen, your access has been revoked. All client engagement must cease per HR protocol. Please do not return to company premises. Sent by Grayson Bell. Timestamp 2:03 a.m. Exactly 1 hour after the deal locked. Not a call. Not a face. Not even a fabricated reason. Just an execution. Mid-air. They didn't wait for me to land. They didn't have the decency to pretend it was performance. They cut me loose the moment I handed them the prize. My screen went black. My phone followed. VPN blocked. Credentials invalid. Everything I'd built scrubbed like a ghost from their system, and I sat there surrounded by sleeping executives and humming engines watching the silence eat me alive. But what they didn't know was that I never kept the real future on company servers. I reached beneath my seat, pulled out the matte black laptop, unconnected, untouchable. It glowed awake like a second heartbeat. The Orvantis folder opened. Client drafts, legal memos, call logs, 3 encrypted decks named Zenpath, Helix Europa, Neuronet. Each one prepped, each one clean, each one mine. I didn't feel rage. That would have been too generous. What I felt was insult. Not because they let me go, but because they thought I wouldn't have a backup. They thought power was in the firing. What they forgot was power sits with whoever built the engine. I looked out the window. We were slicing through clouds, descending over the edge of the continent. They'd erased my name, but the clients hadn't. And when I landed, they'd know who still held the floor plans. The taxi pulled up in front of Solvexa's glass tower. I didn't get out. Instead, I stared at the building, 32 floors of polished chrome and backroom politics. I had walked into that lobby almost every weekday for 9 years. Now it felt like an empty shell that had mistaken itself for power. My badge no longer worked. Daniel, the security guard who used to greet me by name, shifted uncomfortably. They said, "Not to let you in." I nodded. I understand. But I didn't turn around. I walked 5 blocks east, checked into a hotel I used to use between flights, and opened the black laptop again. 3 folders waited untouched. Each one opened with a fingerprint and a phrase only I knew. I didn't draft a manifesto. I didn't post a fired but free announcement on social media. I didn't call the press. I sent 3 emails. Each with 4 words. The door is open. 1 to Yuto Watanabe, 1 to Linda Vogt, 1 to Luis Ramos. No attachments, no explanations, just the words. Because that was enough. By noon the next day, all 3 had responded. Yuto replied with a single sentence. "Do you have time to speak privately?" Linda's message came with a request to review a revised clause, my clause. She no longer trusted the Solvexa version. And Luis? He didn't write back. He called. "Tell me what it looks like. No noise, no branding, just results." I smiled. Solvexa had built a story around buzzwords and billboards. Orvantis was something else. It was unbranded precision, quiet logic. A skeleton key in the hands of the woman who had drawn the locks. We didn't launch it, we activated it. 3 clients, 3 quiet meetings, 3 shifts in gravity that no one at Solvexa could trace until it was too late. By the time their sales team noticed the silence, I had already sent out onboarding credentials, encrypted, fully compliant, legally bulletproof. They fired me at 38,000 feet. But they forgot the Global Tech Summit in Munich wasn't supposed to be a battlefield. But by the time I walked into room 3C at precisely 9:12 a.m., every breath inside it was loaded. Grayson Bell stood at the front of the room, flanked by his new strategy team. The projection screen behind him displayed Solvexa's logo over a placeholder Global Expansion Initiative Europe and LATAM. Marek Dvorsky, CEO of Netline Systems, a key Eastern European cloud partner, sat at the head of the table, arms crossed. He looked exactly like I remembered from our dinner in Prague, sharp-eyed, skeptical, allergic to corporate theater. Grayson didn't notice me at first, until I stepped forward, until Marek looked up and smiled. "Avery, I didn't know you were here." Grayson turned and went pale. "This is a closed session," he said. Voice too low, too tight. "No," I replied evenly. "It's a joint session." Both parties were invited after Solvexa submitted 2 conflicting capability statements. Marek nodded. We asked for alignment and clarity. I opened my folder and laid out Orvantis's proposed infrastructure map. Lightweight regionally adaptive pre-approved for GDPR and LATAM compliance. Behind me, Raheem Silva, my former Solvexa engineer, now Orvantis CTO, waited quietly with a tablet. This is what we've already deployed for ZenPath Helix Europa and NeuroNet, I said. Same stack, fewer layers, no noise. Grayson's jaw clenched. You really want to work with someone who abandoned her company mid-deal, he snapped, trying to regain footing. I didn't flinch. I don't abandon ships. I rebuild them. Without the people who drilled the holes. Silence, no defense. Only the soft buzz of Merrick's legal advisor flipping through our documents. Then Merrick looked at me. What's your one condition? I met Grayson's eyes. If we're moving forward, he's not involved. I don't deal with companies who fire their architects mid-flight. It landed like a hammer wrapped in silk. Grayson opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing left to say. Merrick nodded. Understood. And just like that, Grayson Bell was irrelevant. Later that evening, I stood in the Orvantis conference room in New York. It wasn't glass and chrome. It was warm wood, open-air windows, full of real light, not fluorescent pretense. A new plaque had been mounted in the lobby that day. Etched in brushed steel, simple, clear, Orvantis, founded by Avery Chen, not hidden in footnotes, not erased from slides, not cropped out of photos, visible, permanent, earned. That afternoon, Jenna from Legal sent me the alert: Grayson Bell removed from Solvexa's board by unanimous vote. An hour later, Mallory Voss resigns. No statement, no scandal, no lawsuit. Just the same silence they once weaponized against me now turned back on them. And me, I didn't celebrate. Because this was never about revenge. It was about reclamation. I'd been erased, replaced, dismissed at 38,000 feet. But now I wasn't waiting to be recognized. I had built the damn frame. And this time, my name was carved into the steel. The end. If you've ever been quietly pushed out of a room you helped build, if someone ever put their name on work you bled for, or if you've ever sat mid-flight, wondering if anyone still sees you, you're not alone, and you're not finished. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If Avery's story stirred something in you, leave a comment. Not to respawn, just to remind the world you're still here. And if you want more stories like this, quiet, sharp, relentless, you know what to do. The door's open. We're just getting started.